Have you ever known someone who passed away of a drug overdose? Yeah? Who? Well, usually they're drug addicts. So maybe homeless people or people who grew up in bad homes or have mental health issues. I've just heard of some people from my old high school. Have you ever known someone who's been prescribed opioids or painkillers? Oh, yeah. And what kind of person usually takes painkillers? Well, that's a normal thing to do, take painkillers. Older people, athletes maybe, just normal people. When we talk about the opioid epidemic, we often talk about numbers. Overdose rates, mortality charts, economic cost, logic-driven arguments meant to quantify harm. But numbers alone cannot explain this crisis. To understand it, we have to study the story we were all sold, the persuasive strategies that shaped how opioids were marketed, prescribed, and later criminalized. We have to ask ourselves, whose voices were amplified, whose were silenced, and who benefited from the way the story was told. These documents come from the Massachusetts lawsuit against Purdue Pharma. They reveal a strategy that shaped the early 2000s: minimize risk, maximize sales. In a 2001 email, a Purdue executive wrote that the company must hammer on the abusers, framing addiction as a personal failing rather than a predictable outcome of a highly addictive drug. This language, abusers, misusers, deviants, constructed an ethos for the company. The drugs were safe, the people were not. Massachusetts wasn't the first state or the last to retaliate against Purdue Pharma. When patients showed signs of addiction to Purdue's opioids, Purdue urged doctors to respond by increasing the opioid dose. To convince doctors to increase the dose for addicted patients, Purdue peddled the false notion that patients suffered from pseudo-addiction. Imagine if the early rhetoric had been different. Imagine if addiction had been framed not as a moral flaw but as a medical condition with predictable risk factors. How many deaths could a shift in language have prevented? This timeline shows the rhetorical evolution of the epidemic. In the beginning, pharmaceutical companies used authority and quote-unquote credibility to tell physicians OxyContin carried less than a 1% risk of addiction. This claim appeared scientific, but it was based on a single 5-sentence letter to the editor in one scientific journal among thousands. Later, as public health officials sounded the alarm, the rhetoric shifted. Words like crisis, epidemic, emergency, and overdose replaced earlier reassurances. And today we're shifting again to a new set of narratives around harm reduction, but the legacy of earlier rhetoric lingers. Millions still believe addiction is a choice, not a condition influenced by marketing, policy, misinformation, class, race, status. Doctors documented concerns early on. Patients building tolerance, withdrawing between doses, asking for higher quantities. But these concerns were overshadowed by persuasive appeals and ads from pharmaceutical reps who were trained to prey on empathy and convince doctors they were helping patients live better lives. Pain is the fifth vital sign, they said. Your patient deserves relief. This medication will restore their quality of life. The combined effect reshaped prescribing culture in the U.S., leaving both doctors and patients vulnerable to misinformation disguised as care. F that. Harm reduction is a new strategy, one grounded in compassion, pragmatism, and advocacy. Its message is simple: people who use drugs deserve to live. Instead of blame-based framing, addict, abuser, junkie, harm reduction uses person-first language. Person who uses drugs, person with substance use disorder. This language in shift matters. Research shows that when people are spoken about with dignity, they are more likely to seek treatment, more likely to survive, and more likely to feel connected to their communities. Harm reduction reminds us that the opioid crisis is not just a story about villains and victims. It's a story about real, regular people who need and deserve care. And how we tell that story determines who we protect. Does this change how you view people affected by harmful drug use? In every stage of this crisis, it's clear that the way we talk about things shapes reality. From corporate marketing to public health messaging, from news coverage to everyday conversations, we've been told who deserves sympathy and who deserves blame. But the truth is simple. Addiction is not a moral failure, it's a human experience shaped by systems, structures, illnesses, and choices we often do not fully understand. This message aims to shed light and help us come closer to understanding that issue. It affects everyone, and everyone deserves empathy. Meet people where they're at, try not to judge, know your local harm reduction resources like places to get Narcan or safe treatment facilities. Understanding this could save thousands of lives. Help us be a part of the fight to destigmatize, dismantle, and deliver care to our communities.